Governments. The Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia People's Army was a guerrilla group involved in the continuing Colombian conflict starting in 1964. They were known to employ a variety of military tactics in addition to more unconventional methods, including terrorism. The Farc was formed during the Cold War period as a Marxist-Leninist peasant force promoting a political line of agrarianism and anti-imperialism. The operations of the Farc were funded by kidnap and ransom, illegal mining, extortion and taxation of various forms of economic activity, and the production and distribution of illegal drugs. The United Nations has estimated that 12% of all civilian deaths in the Colombian conflict were committed by Farc and National Liberation Army guerrillas, with 80% committed by right-wing paramilitaries, and the remaining 8% committed by Colombian security forces. The strength of the Farc forces was high. In 2007, the Farc said they were an armed force of 18,000 men and women. In 2010, the Colombian military calculated that Farc forces consisted of about 13,800 members, 50% of whom were armed guerrilla combatants. And, in 2011, the President of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, said that Farc forces comprised fewer than 10,000 members. The Colombian Ministry of Defense reported 19,504 deserters, or individually demobilized members, from the Farc between August 2002 and their collective demobilization in 2017. Despite potentially severe punishment, including execution, for attempted desertion in the Farc, in 2012, the Farc made 239 attacks on the energy infrastructure. However, they showed signs of fatigue. By 2014, the Farc were not seeking to engage in outright combat with the army, instead concentrating on small-scale ambushes against isolated army units. Meanwhile, from 2008 to 2017, the Farc opted to attack police patrols with homemade mortars, sniper rifles, and explosives, as they were not considered strong enough to engage police units directly. This followed the trend of the 1990s during the strengthening of Colombian government forces. In June 2016, the Farc signed a ceasefire accord with the President of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, in Havana. This accord was seen as an historic step to ending the war that has gone on for 50 years. On the 25th of August 2016, the Colombian President, Juan Manuel Santos, announced that 4 years of negotiation had secured a peace deal with Farc and that a national referendum would take place on the 2nd of October. The referendum failed with 50.24% voting against. On November 24, 2016, the Colombian government and the Farc signed a revised peace deal, which the Colombian Congress approved on the 30th of November. On the 27th of June 2017, Farc ceased to be an armed group, disarming itself and handing over its weapons to the United Nations. 1 month later, Farc announced its reformation as a legal political party, the Common Alternative Revolutionary Force, in accordance with the terms of the peace deal. However, about 2,000 to 2,500 Farc dissidents still take on FARC's original doctrine and continue with drug trafficking, though far smaller than the group at its peak. A small faction of Farc leaders announced a return to armed activity on the 29th of August 2019, stating that the Colombian government did not respect peace agreements, a position Colombian officials disagreed with. The Colombian government responded with offensive strikes, killing Farc members planning to lead rearmament activities. Diary of Ernesto Che Guevara. The 6th of July 1952. In 1948, in the aftermath of the assassination of the populist politician Jorge Eliezer Gaitán, there occurred a decade of large-scale political violence throughout Colombia, which was a conservative, liberal civil war that killed more than 200,000 people. In Colombian history and culture, the killings are known as La Violencia. Most of the people killed were peasants and laborers in rural Colombia. In 1957-1958, the political leadership of the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party agreed to establish a bipartisan political system known as the National Front. The Liberal and the Conservative parties agreed to alternate in the exercise of government power by presenting a joint National Front candidate to each election and restricting the participation of other political movements. The pact was ratified as a constitutional amendment by a national plebiscite on 1 December 1957 and was supported by the church as well as Colombia's business leaders. The initial power-sharing agreement was effective until 1974. Nonetheless, with modifications, the liberal-conservative bipartisan system lasted until 1990. The 16-year extension of the bipartisan power-sharing agreement permitted the liberal and conservative elites to consolidate their socio-economic control of Colombian society, and to strengthen the military to suppress political reform and radical politics, proposing alternative forms of government for Colombia. During the 1960s, the